Where do we come from? How do we get here? How do human beings get here? When does life begin? When did life begin?
Those are very deep questions.
Yeah.
I tend to think that human beings got here through evolution.
Evolution.
We came out of the soup, so to speak.
Okay,
You
so
know?
slime. From the saying goes from the goo to the zoo to you. That's the saying.
You know, over billions of years, it's so difficult for humans to fathom time spans that we're talking about. You know, and from is a four-letter word, but the reality is that from the goo to the zoo to the human beings, it took years of time that we can't even fathom in our own minds. You know, the distance between the Earth to the Sun is a distance that's almost impossible to fathom. I think evolution is sort of the same kind of concept.
Okay, so that's basically what you.
But I believe
learn
that
in schools and stuff like that.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. I don't think we got zapped here by aliens.
Okay.
I think there was a better design than that.
A better design.
Yes.
Okay, so but you think there was a design, not because evolution really teaches. They don't really like when we were in there today. We were looking for biogenesis. Where did the first life form begin? And as we can actually walk and talk if you want.
Sure, whatever you
Let's
like.
let's walk
So
and talk.
there's design optimization, though. In other words, design doesn't necessarily mean that an intelligent person came and put us on here. When I talk about people talk like a grand design or God's design, it could also be a sort of a design by trial and error. You end up with something at the end of the day through trial and error that you can look back with hindsight and say, well, it was designed or engineered this way, even though it wasn't purposeful. By seeing what failed, what failed didn't work, so what you're left with is what naturally succeeded, and in and of itself, that suggests a design.
So you're saying
humans are not uniquely suited. Humans are not uniquely suited to be on planet Earth. We are not fully integrated.
Around isn't this wild though? It's
right.
Like the interaction.
Trees are great for planet Earth. In other words, trees can exist here forever and ever for hundreds of years. They have all the sunlight, all the natural water that they need. They don't need anybody else to come along and provide anything for them. My son cannot survive on planet Earth without me. Humans are not born that way. Trees are. Humans aren't. Even adults aren't born that way. We're not adjusted to the sun. We have to cover ourselves and put sunscreen on ourselves. We're not adjusted to life on this planet, even remotely, as well as some of the other things that are alive.
We did pretty good without sunscreen for about, a few thousand years, didn't we?
Well, did we? In other words, before we knew it, how many people actually got the skin cancer and skin problems because of it? We just didn't know what it was. Yeah. I don't know that we came out on the other side. Okay, right. We came from very cold weather environs where it was basically optimal, where people stayed inside a lot of the time and thought about shit.
But they teach in there that we came from Africa. It's very hot weather.
No, we evolved. In other words, we evolved from Africa, but at the end of the day, and I also think that's true. But at the end of the day, I think there are our ancestors, the people who we evolved from, were far more better suited for Earth's environment than we are today.
Okay, so
you could put them in a bush with, forgive me, a spear, and they'd be all set. They're all fine. We are not.
Okay, so back to origin. So basically, you believe that stardust, time plus matter plus chance is how we got here.
Yes.
Okay. So destiny. What happens when Roy and I hit the ground when we're done?
Yeah.
What happens to us?
So it's different. There's a human destiny in our individuality. We rot. I mean, I don't believe that we ascend to anything higher. To quote George Carlin, there's nothing actually up there. It's I think that we came from the earth and we return to the earth.
George Carlin. Yeah, that's an interesting voice.
George Carlin talks about people at funerals saying, "Well, I'm sure he's up there smiling down upon us."
Right.
He's like, just to be clear, he's not up there.
When he's talking about God,
he
right.
does that. No, not God. It's somebody who's departed.
Somebody
After they die, at their funeral, you say, "I'm sure they're looking down upon us right now and they're smiling,
right?
Or they're happy to see us here together." No, they're not. They're not up there.
So you're a Carlinite.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so one of the things
some things speak to you.
Some people. I remember the quote from George Carlin about the Illuminati. He says, "Are there secret societies and people that make bigger decisions? No. Are there people that would have other agendas and that would kill people for those reasons? No." And he goes on to do this whole spiel about, of course, there's organizations that do that.
Of course.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I know George Carlin. So, meaning. Does life have meaning?
Absolutely.
If so, why?
Life has the meaning you give to it. In other words, we're born with the ability to make rational choice, and to be educated more than any other species that at least we know has ever existed.
That's speciesism, man.
It is. Oh, for sure. We are the superior species.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
You can't say that in New York. That's
sure
speciesism. Okay.
No, I think we are. I think we're whether it's through chance, as you said, or whether it's through some grander design of God, I'm not one to say, but I can tell you that I think that life absolutely has meaning because we're progressing forward. I mean, one thing that we know about mankind is that we've always been on a natural progression forward. From 40,000 years ago to today, we've immensely improved our technology, our lives. Everybody's life is a small block in that grander side of meaning. When one person looks in the mirror and says, well, why doesn't my life have meaning, or does my life have meaning? It's very hard on an individual level to see it. But as we stand here today in New York, like New York City is a great example. People have always been building here and changing here. This was you talk about the history of the city. Mm-hmm. Some of the greatest social experiments. Could all the people of the earth live together on an island?
We're in Central Park, man. This is a social experiment.
Absolutely. There's nothing natural about Central Park, by the way. Every tree here, every stone here was designed by the architects who put it here.
Really?
Lawn Olmsted. None of this is natural.
Okay, so back to meaning. Okay, so if we come from stardust and we're going to become stardust again.
Sure. I
understand there's a temporary meaning, right? You love people and you maybe have a purpose of something you're doing that's beneficial.
Sure.
But where do things like that come from? Like how does stardust get, where does love and self-sacrifice and courage and where do those things come from how do you possibly theorize they come from stardust?
Sure. In other words, first of all, I'm not sure stardust is necessarily right at the beginning. I suppose that's what there was.
Yeah.
Do you think you're stardust?
Well, it's elements. Yeah, it's elements flying through the universe.
Right, but I look at my son here,
mm-hmm.
who's a little bit pouty right now,
Hi,
and I don't see stardust. I see a future. He has an actual purpose and a meaning in the future. If I didn't see it, what would I be doing? I'd just be in a strip club every night. I like the idea that that you get to nurture something and you get to affect him specifically, mm-hmm. and watch him grow. And you're right. Maybe his life won't having as much meaning as Napoleon's or Einstein's, but it's going to have meaning, and you want him to be fulfilled. I'm
talking about eternal purpose. Like, let's say there was something when we die. Yeah. If something, there can't be an eternal purpose according to the worldview you're saying, because you're saying if we go to stardust again, which is essentially what we're talking about, there couldn't be an eternal meaning. But so you're trying to you're looking for meaning. You're looking for meaning in a temporary world.
Perhaps the elements of the earth are eternal. But when you talk about eternity, meaning an infinite amount of time moving forward and backward, you're right. There's very little meaning in that. You have to find meaning.
There can't be any, can there?
No, there is. I mean, there's. Well, listen. Let me put it to you this way. At some point in that cosmic, I'm trying to think of the right word. In the cosmic universe, in the cosmic narrative. Thank you. Buddy. In the cosmic narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have to tell me what you think afterwards. But perhaps great things have come forth, and perhaps we have changed the world in ways that we don't even realize. We sent radio waves out into the universe. We've sent the Voyager.
Yeah.
We've sent the Voyager out into
Star
the
Trek. You quote my movies, man.
Yeah. So there's no great. There's nobody saying we have or we haven't, and we'll never know. That's part of the beauty of it. We'll never know.
Well, in a natural worldview, we'll never know. If there was a supernatural worldview, we might know, right?
Like Ghostbusters, or do you supernatural?
Supernatural, spiritual world, something bigger, intelligent being, a god.
Yes.
In that world,
I believe in God.
You do believe in God?
Absolutely.
Now, what kind of God do you believe in?
I believe in a generous and tolerant God.
Generous and tolerant. Okay.
Yep, I do.
So it's not a God of the Quran or the Bible. It's just kind of a generic God.
I think that those are very self-serving things. The Quran and the Bible, it's there's a lot of great lessons to be learned from it, and a lot of great has come from it. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it was written by men.
Okay, so the Quran, what's good has come from the Quran, you think?
Oh, you're talking to the right guy. I just got back from a month in Istanbul.
Really?
It's a beautiful. We took him. We took him for a month. We had a great time. We have very good friends there.
Awesome.
Listen,
it's beautiful, man.
Sure, it is.
I got a friend lived there for 7 years. Yeah.
It's so interesting when you demystify religion. What good has come of it? I know too many. Beautiful thing about New York is you get to meet people from all these different cultures that perhaps you don't get to meet. I know too many intelligent, hardworking, well-educated, and grounded, good, decent people from all religions to think that there's any monopoly on one religion and being inherently good or inherently bad. And I think that it's the human frailty that allows us to point our finger at other people and say, see them, they're different from us, therefore we're better, or that we're smarter, or somehow like that. That's a human condition that we all have.
So
all religions think that.
so the God that you talk about is, you think there's an eternal God, there's a heaven and a hell? Is it destiny?
No, I think that's meant to scare people.
Okay, so you think what happens when we die then?
I think we rot. I think we rot.
So then God just...
God returns it from ashes to ashes. Ashes to ashes.
Okay, so that's like that's not even pantheism. Pantheism believes that we become, the Buddhists believe a spirit lives on, or just pantheists in general we become a drop in the ocean of life again, and we assimilate into that. But you just believe that we're done. Spirit dies.
Well,
everything's
yeah.
done.
I mean, our. That's one of the tragedies about people who. I heard of. Oh God, what's the great guy? The head of the. The head of the.
Lawrence Krauss, Richard Dawkins.
No. Give me a sec. The head of the planetarium, who has his
Here?
own show. Yeah, he has the show The Universe. What's his name?
Well, the guy who's dead.
He's
Carl-
black. He's got a mustache.
Oh yeah, Degrassi.
Neil
Neil
deGrasse
Tyson,
Tyson, right?
yeah.
He said one of the great thefts of life is people who burn themselves. The immolation, when
Yeah.
you're burned on a pyre.
Yep.
He's like, that's you wasting all of your energy, all of your life's energy is being put up in smoke and wasted. But when you bury it in the earth, it allows your nutrients and everything to be reabsorbed and reused.
Actually, it's surprising to come from him because he should believe in a contained universe where that burning of it, nothing's gone. It transfers energy into heat from matter to
he's
heat
basically
energy.
saying that you're ineffectively transferring it, whereas when you bury yourself, it's a more effective transfer.
So he believes more in what's it called when you put something in the soil to make it fertilizer. Fertilizing better than burning.
Well,
Okay.
Sure, and I think that tends to be true. In other words, when I say ashes to ashes, we're returned to the earth whence we came.
Okay. So last question is morality. Is there such thing as good and evil in your worldview?
Yes. There's such a thing as good and evil.
There is such thing as good and evil.
Yes.
Who decides?
That's a great question. In some instances, the Bible would say that there's two different types of good and evil. There's the transgressions against God and the transgressions against man, and they're not the same kind of good and evil. God, for instance, tells you to keep his Sabbath holy. But if you don't keep the Sabbath holy, are you an evil person? No, I don't believe so. But if you lie and cheat and steal, and you're generally a low-down human being, I don't give a darn if you keep the Sabbath holy. Right? You're a bad person. So there's a huge gray area between the black and white of are you good or bad. I tend to believe the golden rule, do unto others as you have to do unto you. And I think that most religions, at the end of the day, basically espouse that belief to some varying degrees. And there's always the wackadoodles on all sides who say, hey, you've got to be better than everybody else. We're the superior race. We're the superior people.
Well, I'm talking about
but
is there
most
such
people,
so there's no in the God in your mind. He doesn't decide what's good and evil. Doesn't speak through religion.
No
there's,
way.
There's what? So how do you?
God's not down here
but-
on
but
earth.
how do you
Human
deter-
beings have to decide what's good
Then
and evil.
if there is good and evil, how do you determine, Roy, what is good and what is evil?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'll give that the the old pornography test. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
So you're saying
that's how the Supreme Court defined pornography back in the day. Is the Warren test? I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it. So here's a great question. This is a really interesting thing. Husbands who kill their wives. Now you can live with your wife for 20 years and be a perfectly good husband. One day you snap, whatever it is, you kill your wife. Now the one thing you know for sure, the odds of you killing anybody else the rest of your life, slim to none. That's a highly personal thing. You're not a serial killer. This is a husband who kills his wife.
Unless it's the first.
Unless it's the first. Well, obviously there are guys that kill multiple wives, but
Right.
but no. In generally speaking, there's people who snap after many good years of living, being a socially adjusted, law-abiding human being. There's people who snap and do terrible things. Bad people don't all commit crimes. Criminals are not all bad people. So it doesn't come down to whether or not you violate the law. I think it comes down generally to how you live your life. And you can live a lifetime of being a bad person, or you can make an instantaneous mistake that you have to live with for the rest of your life. In many instances, even though the underlying facts may be more grotesque or more shocking, you may actually be a better person because of how you've lived the aggregate of your life, even though you've made a mistake, even though we have to punish you for it.
Okay, but evolution teaches survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest means
Absolutely.
it's competition for resources, right?
Sure.
So if someone has something, and in the aggregate of a country, and that country's smaller, they've got resources, we want them. Let's go get them, Germany, right? Adolf Hitler. Let's go get them, Stalin. Let's kill our own people, Stalin, because they're not following our philosophy.
But
is that good or evil? And I mean,
no, that's inherently evil, and I'll tell you why. Hitler, of all people, who served in World War I, who was in the trenches and got gassed himself in World War I, he knew exactly the kind of horrors that he was unleashing. I hate politicians who send people off to war, but politicians who've actually been to war and are eager to go back to war, those are even worse people. If you know what kind of hell you're sending people into, you're a truly sadistic person. And at the end of the day, he is an evil person, and I'll tell you why.
What?
Germany today is one of the richest countries in the world. Their resources, their intelligence, the things that they're able to produce there without killing billions of people, right? The proof is already there. Hitler was wrong. You didn't need to do all of that in order for your country to be strong, in order for your country to be independent.
You're not saying they are the master race, are you?
No, but I'm saying Germany's they're doing pretty well for
They're doing
themselves
pretty well.
these days, right? Without
Yeah,
all that
but I'm
craziness.
saying, but watch this. There's people in Germany.
So
I know,
is Japan.
I know a lot of people were complicit. They went along with it because they were scared.
Sure.
But a lot of people bought into that.
Sure.
They said, look, we're strong.
Democratically elected.
Hitler literally followed survival of the fittest and said, we are the
I have
master
this right
race.
here,
Yeah, we're the master race. We're taking over. We deserve all this stuff. That was good for his culture, right?
It was good for him.
Right,
It
so-
kept him in control.
But we say it's evil.
It was not good for his culture. Look what happened to Germany.
So how do we know? But he says that was good. We say it's evil. How do we know who's
Buddy.
right? He's
You
out.
got me talking. You got me. This is the best news of all. All right, thank
That's
you.
good. So how do we know who's right?
How do we know who's
Like
right?
he says, and a bunch of people says we're doing good. We're getting rid of the weak. We're the
Well,
infirms and
sure.
whatever.
Sure,
And
me-
we look at it and go, that's pure evil.
it's pure evil.
Who's decided what is right? How do we know that we're right and he's not right?
You know something? It's a really interesting question because reasonable people can disagree about reasonable things, but when you're talking about mass extermination, that's not a reasonable thing. You're taking
That's your
upon
opinion.
yourself.
That's your subjective opinion, though.
No, I think there are some things that are more. I think there are some things that are more black and white than others.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's a black and white issue.
Before you cross, let me pause this and we'll
Sure.
say goodbye. Wouldn't it make sense that there's got to be somebody bigger and higher than us that tells you what's good and evil? And I'll tell you what, it's your first son. I have 5 kids. When my kids
God
were young,
bless.
in my house, it was, this is good, this is bad. You don't play with knives. You don't touch hot water. This is good to share.
Right, but that's in your house.
Right, but I'm saying
Right.
In their world, that's their universe, right?
Yes.
There's got to be someone bigger or higher that determines that. So wouldn't it make sense that there's got to be someone bigger or higher than us, human race, that determines what's good and evil? Would that make sense? Because otherwise, it's subjective opinion. Right?
I think that. Can I be honest with you? I think that's a cop out, man.
Really?
Yeah, I think you're taking it out of our hands and saying, well, it's manifest. Then you're just saying it's manifest destiny. God wills it. Deus vult. That's what they did for the Crusades. God wills it. You fall on that crutch and you can do anything with that kind of argument.
I don't think God willed the Crusades like what those guys did. But
the logic behind it, the idea that you'll simply throw it on a crutch and say, well, if we're successful, therefore God willed it. If I'm the king, therefore God wanted it. That's a totally way of looking at it.
I don't buy into that at all.
All right, so we agree.
But I just think that in order for there to be good and evil, there's got to be someone that says this is good and this is evil. It can't just be us. We're the whim, right? We're the crowd that goes back and forth. Remember in Gladiator? You can't the crowd. You can't just go with the crowd. That's Rome. Rome's the crowd.
That's
well,
right.
The crowd switches
rule.
all the time. Mob rules.
Rule.
That doesn't make
Just-
because
just-
the needle keeps changing. True North keeps changing.
We live in a real democracy,
Right.
but 99% of us don't want to pay taxes.
Right. 99% of the world does not live in democracy.
Right.
Bob.
It's some of it's an illusion.
Right,
I
right.
tend to agree with you on that. I definitely think that there are some things that are inherent to man,
Yep.
and if it came from a higher purpose,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not denying it. I'm not saying I'm not being agnostic about it either. I think that we know in ourselves. I don't need my dad to tell me that killing someone else is wrong.
Good for you.
I think it's nascent. Anyway,
Hey,
yo,
Roy,
tell me,
thank you.
where are you guys from? Tell me, what's the deal? Tell me the deal.
I'm going to give you the deal. This is we're from.
You're stopping New Yorkers on the street. Let's hear it.
Well, we're trying to get. We stopped some Germans earlier. They weren't from New York. The important questions of life, and the things that we think we debunk. We try to debunk them. Things that we don't think make sense logically, physically, philosophically, those kind of things.
I really liked your questions and I liked your logic. I thought you had really sound logic with a lot of that. So kudos to you, man. Really, my pleasure.
Thank you.
What do I do here?
Stay
Can I
bold.
see this?
Hey everybody, Carl Kirby here. Thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, check out one of these other videos. Also, make sure you subscribe to our channel and visit our website at rforh.com. Adios.